You are standing waist-deep in a muddy river in south-central Oklahoma. It is June, 91 degrees. The water is the color of sweet tea and it smells like clay and rotting leaves. Your feet are sinking into silt so soft it feels like wet cement. And the man next to you, forearms like fence posts, hands scarred white in 3 places, is telling you to reach into a hole in the riverbank and let whatever is inside bite you. No rod, no reel, no hook, no line. Just your bare hand, shoved into a dark hole underwater, waiting for a fish to clamp down on your fingers with a mouth that feels like a belt sander. They call it noodling. And it is illegal in 33 states, 0. That is the cost of gear. You do not need a single piece of equipment. No lure, no tackle, no boat, nothing manufactured, nothing purchased, nothing patented. Your hand is the bait, your arm is the rod, your grip is the hook. $0 versus a recreational fishing industry that generates $230 billion a year in economic activity across the United States. When you understand why that number matters, you will understand exactly why most of the country made this illegal. I drove 5 hours to a stretch of water outside Pauls Valley, Oklahoma, to see this for myself. Pauls Valley is a town of about 6,000 people, 60 miles south of Oklahoma City. Every June, more than 10,000 people show up there for the Okie Noodling Tournament, the largest and longest-running hand fishing competition in the world. It started in 2001 after a documentary filmmaker named Bradley Beesley gathered a group of noodlers together. One of them suggested they have a weigh-in like Bassmasters. They met at a local barbecue joint called Bob's Pig Shop. Within a few years, the thing outgrew every venue in town and moved to Wacker Park. I met a guide named Nate. Quiet, built like he had been stacking hay since he could walk. He had won that tournament 5 times. His biggest fish, an 85-pound flathead catfish, was a tournament record caught in 2019. He took me to a bank where the water was chest deep. He pointed at a dark hole under a tangle of submerged roots and said, "Put your hand in there, slow, palm up, let him come to you." I asked him what happens if it is not a catfish. He looked at me like I had asked what color the sky was. "Then you pull your hand out fast." I reached in. I felt nothing. Then I felt something like coarse sandpaper press against my knuckles, then a pressure, sudden, heavy, angry, clamped around my right hand. I grabbed behind the jaw, hooked my fingers into the gill plate, and pulled. A 30-pound flathead came out of that hole thrashing like it wanted to take me with it. No rod, no hook, no cost, just 2 hands and nerve. And here's the part nobody tells you, that fish was on a nest. It was guarding eggs. It bit me not because it was hungry, but because it was protecting its young. That is the instinct noodlers exploit. And that is the detail that changed everything about how this method got regulated. Noodling is not new. It is not a trend. It is one of the oldest documented fishing methods on this continent. In 1775, an Irish immigrant and trader named James Adair, born around 1709 in County Antrim, Ireland, published accounts of Native American tribes catching catfish by hand in the rivers of South Carolina. He had lived among the Cherokee, Chickasaw, and Catawba for nearly 40 years. He watched them wade into shallow water and pull flatheads from holes with nothing but their arms wrapped in cloth. Scottish immigrants in the Appalachian and Ozark regions picked it up. They had their own version, a technique called trout tickling, and adapted it to American catfish. For 200 years, noodling was how poor rural families along the Mississippi River basin fed themselves. During the Great Depression, it was not recreation, it was survival. But here is where it gets interesting. In 1950, Congress passed the Dingell-Johnson Act, named after Congressman John Dingell of Michigan and Senator Edwin Johnson of Colorado. This law placed a 10% excise tax on fishing rods, reels, creels, lures, and artificial flies. The money went into the Sportfish Restoration Fund, administered by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and distributed to state fish and wildlife agencies. In 1984, the Wallop-Breaux Amendments expanded the tax to include fish finders, electric trolling motors, import duties on tackle and pleasure boats, and a portion of motorboat fuel tax. Since its inception, that fund has generated over $12 billion. It has built or improved more than 9,000 public boating and fishing access sites. It supports 320 state fish hatcheries that stock roughly 1 billion fish every year. Think about that for a second. The entire state-level fisheries management system in America is funded by a tax on manufactured fishing equipment. Every rod sold, every reel boxed, every plastic lure bagged, 10 cents on every dollar goes into the system. The American Sportfishing Association, which represents the tackle manufacturers, calls it the most successful user-pay, public benefit conservation program in the world. Now ask yourself, what happens to that revenue stream if a method of fishing requires zero equipment? And here is the detail that matters. When state wildlife agencies classify catfish as game fish, as Missouri did, hand fishing becomes regulated under the state wildlife code. The Missouri Department of Conservation has stated publicly that surveys show handfishing is highly successful and that legalizing it could jeopardize local populations of popular game fish, not because the populations cannot sustain it, but because the fish are classified in a way that ties them to the excise tax-funded management system. No tackle purchased means no tax collected means no funding distributed. One sentence buried that entire tradition. Not because it failed, because it worked too well for an industry whose revenue depends on you buying something first. Now here's the part that should keep you up at night. Noodling works because of catfish biology. Flathead catfish, the primary species noodlers target, spawn between May and August when water temperatures reach about 70 degrees. The male clears out a cavity in a riverbank under submerged logs or inside man-made structures. The female deposits her eggs, then leaves. The male stays. He guards that nest aggressively for days, sometimes weeks. He will attack anything that enters that hole. A hand, a foot, a stick, anything. When a noodler reaches into that hole, the catfish does not bite because it is feeding. It bites because it is defending. The fish clamps down with a mouth lined with hundreds of tiny, backward-angled teeth, like coarse grit sandpaper. It does not pierce. It abrades. The noodler then hooks a hand behind the lower jaw or into the gill plate and hauls the fish to the surface. Flatheads caught this way routinely weigh between 10 and 50 pounds. Trophy fish exceed 80. The Oklahoma lake record for a noodled catfish is 87 pounds, 85 hundredths, 53 and 3/4 inches long. It works because of three things. First, predictable location. Spawning males are always in structure. Second, guaranteed aggression. They will bite anything that enters the nest. Third, anatomical leverage. The flathead's wide, flat skull and broad jaw give a noodler something to grip. Now, if you are thinking this only works on some backcountry river in Oklahoma, stay with me, because what I'm about to show you works on any river, lake, or reservoir in any state where noodling is legal this summer. Step 1. Check your state laws. As of right now, noodling is legal in about 17 states: Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, Illinois, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, North Carolina, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wisconsin. Regulations vary. Most states restrict it to daylight hours only. Many set a season between June 1st and August 31st. Some require a specific handfishing permit. Check your state wildlife agency before you touch water. Step 2. Find the right water. You want slow-moving rivers, reservoir banks, or lake shorelines with structure, clay banks with holes, submerged timber, root systems, riprap, or man-made structures like old tires or concrete blocks. The key is finding cavities large enough for a spawning flathead. Water depth should be waist to chest deep. Avoid deep channels where a big fish can pull you under. Step 3. Never go alone. This is the most important rule. Noodling in pairs or groups is not optional. Your spotter watches for hazards: snapping turtles, cottonmouth moccasins, beaver dens, strong current. If a 60-pound fish pins your arm in a hole and you are alone, you drown. It has happened. Step 4. The approach. Wade to the structure. Feel the bank or log for openings. Reach in slow, palm facing up. If the hole is occupied, you will know. A catfish bite feels like someone slamming a wet leather glove around your hand and squeezing. Do not pull back. Push forward. Get your hand behind the jaw or into the gill plate. Then pull. Step 5. The extraction. Keep the fish's head pointed toward you. Use your other hand to support the belly. Get help from your spotter to lift the fish out of the water. A big flathead will roll, thrash, and try to spin. That is where you lose skin. Wear old long sleeves. Some noodlers wear leather gloves, though not all states allow them. The mistake most people make is pulling back when the fish first bites. Your instinct screams at you to withdraw. Do not. If you jerk your hand back, the sandpaper teeth rake across your skin, and the fish escapes deeper into the hole. Push in, grip, and commit. Once you have the basic technique, there is an advanced approach. Experienced noodlers will block secondary exits from the hole with their legs or with a partner's body, creating a seal. This forces the fish forward into your hands. Some old-timers carry a forked stick, cut from a broom handle, to check the hole first before reaching in. This technique did not disappear because it stopped working. It disappeared because a 250-year-old method of catching fish requires no equipment, generates no tax revenue, and threatens a system that depends on you buying something before you're allowed to participate. And the only reason you did not know about it is because nobody profits when a man walks into a river with nothing but his hands and walks out with dinner. If you are the kind of person who believes that real outdoor knowledge has been quietly pushed aside to protect someone else's profit, you already know what to do. Tell me in the comments, has anyone in your family ever noodled? Was it your grandfather, your uncle? Was it legal where they did it, or did they just not care? I read every comment on this channel. Next week I'm going to show you a fire starting method the Swedish military developed in 1618 that uses a single log and burns for 5 hours with no additional fuel. Every camping gear company on earth hopes you never see that video. You will not want to miss it.